Hi Gladiators, I just want to give you an update of what's been going on with GOLAD over the last few days. Version 1.6 came out a few hours ago, but it has a few bugs, and I tried to fix them in version 1.7, but it takes Apple a few days to get those changes published. So you can see this one is waiting for review. So I just want to talk about stuff that you should probably avoid doing in 1.6. So let me just tell you the changes that have happened between version 1.5, which was up when I first released the GOLAD video, 1.6, and now 1.7. Also, yes, my fingernails are extremely long, and I'm going to cut them later today. My original intention with GOLAD would be that the phone would kind of act as a chessboard, in that you could play the game of life and death between another person in real life, but you couldn't really do anything online with it, because that's not really my responsibility. I also don't have much experience with managing online games across the internet, so I didn't really want to undertake such a big task. But realizing that GOLAD had almost no replay value without online games, I implemented them. And my first step was just to do Game Center games, which is using Apple's pre-made service for handling multiplayer games. This kind of worked. I spent 2 weeks trying to learn how these functions worked, and I even had to follow a tutorial from 2011 to get me through it all. But there's a bunch of issues, including that sometimes when you select a game here, it'll just say error, and you'll get sent back to the main menu. And there's really no way to fix it except just trying again and again and restarting the app. And Hazel Cricket actually has a video explaining how to do that in the description below. But there were two things I didn't really like about using Game Center in my app. One of those things was that it wasn't cross-platform. I don't know how to get Game Center working on Android devices, and I also don't think it would be possible to get it working on an in-browser or desktop version. So what I did between version 1.5 and 1.6 is implement the second type of online game, which is the H-Twins games, and that uses a database that I am storing on our website. Oh, it's closed. Oh no, it's right here. And it shows, oh, I don't know if this is private, but these are all the games going on right now. And this way, I could access this database on an iPhone, on an Android, on a computer, and it would all work. I thought these H-Twins games were a good idea, and when I first implemented them and tested them between my phone and my brother's phone, it worked really well. The lag was less than half a second, which was much faster than Game Center, and I could run it on any platform, which is really nice. However, when I released it, I guess because I had never realized how well it would scale with many devices, now it's extremely laggy, even worse than Game Center. And worse than that, sometimes when I try to load games, it doesn't show the very last move for whatever reason. That time it worked. It's kind of shaky. Anyway, I feel like it wasn't such a good idea because now that the responsibility of maintaining these games lies on our own website, it's kind of our responsibility if the website goes down, and that just seems like a hassle. So in version 1.7, I'm not disabling these games because I know that some people have already started games that they want to finish, but I will discourage it. So now when you press new game, it says recommended Game Center games. And if you have 1.6 and it doesn't say it yet, I still think you should go with Game Center games because, yeah. So what does this mean for the future of GOLAD? Well, I'm not really sure because as it stands, there are no perfect online multiplayer platforms because both Game Center and H-Twins clearly have their problems. But I'm kind of just tired of working with GOLAD right now because of so many weeks of fruitlessly trying to fix bugs and all that. And I kind of just really like the idea of sticking with offline games since there are no bugs there. However, a lot of people really want it, especially people on Android. One thing I thought was, if there's anyone in my audience who has experience with this kind of stuff and wants to work with me somehow, I don't know how we could get that to work, but it would be really cool if I wasn't the only person trying to fix these bugs and someone who knew more about the subject could handle implementing GOLAD online games. Because other apps seem to do it fine. And then one last thing I want to address, or maybe two things. I've seen a lot of comments of people saying that Game of Life and Death isn't really such a great multiplayer game after all. And like, I'm not trying to debunk them, but here's just what I have to say in response to them. So some people said that GOLAD was not as complex and in-depth as I was making it out to be, and that programming an AI to beat GOLAD is like programming an AI to beat tic-tac-toe. It's not very interesting. That might be true, but one thing about Game of Life that really appealed to me at the beginning was the fact that there was the butterfly effect with different formations. What I mean by that is, take a look at this formation right here. This is a big Z shape. What do you think will happen to it in a few generations? Well, let's find out. In 3 generations, it dies off completely. However, if we make a slight modification to it beforehand, so this cell in the corner, instead of being here, it's up here. That's a very small change, but now how long will this formation last? Let's find out. That was a bit longer, but actually if the board were infinite, I think that formation, which is called an R pentomino, lasts about 1,000 generations. That's so different from the 3 generations before that clearly very minute changes beforehand can lead to very different outcomes afterward, which means you can't really apply a simple mathematical function to each cell to figure out which cell is the best one to press. There's a lot more interaction that is seemingly unpredictable based on these really tiny changes. That makes me think that this game is more interesting than that. One example of this butterfly effect taking place in an actual game would be something like this. So it looks like the red player is pretty far ahead of the blue player in terms of cells. So as the 2 players are making their moves, they might just like do normal stuff around here to try to, I don't know, reduce slums, which is I guess a term for a bunch of cells that are going to die from overpopulation in the next generation. You know, typical moves. However, if it's red's turn and red does nothing with this formation in the corner, then this is going to get out of control and it's going to grow much larger. And this is called a pi heptomino. Do you see how big it's getting? So these formations that grow much larger than their initial state and take very long to stabilize are called Methuselahs. And I'm guessing like really avid GOLAD players will memorize all the Methuselahs and know when to address them. Because if it's player red's turn again, but they know that this pi heptomino is dangerous, then you can just decide to use your turn to kill that cell. Oh, that's not what I want. Like that. And now, instead of taking maybe 300 generations to stabilize, it takes 2. So when you're making your turn, you have to both know kind of like a lookup table of how dangerous each of these formations are, or whether they're just sparks, which are terms for formations that die off entirely in just a few generations. That's kind of just memorization, but the more interesting part of the game is seeing how these formations interact, because once they collide, once their cells interact with other cells, then who knows what's going to happen. That's it for GOLAD updates. I don't know if I'm going to keep uploading GOLAD videos, so let me know if you're interested in this kind of stuff. I know that personally I like channels that do focus on very specific projects because I like tracking the progress of other people's work. However, I know that a lot of people like my channel because it's so diverse. So let me know if you like these GOLAD videos, or maybe want to see more strategies. Like here's one strategy that I just thought of off the top of my head. If you see your enemy forming this formation at all, that will become a traffic light in maybe 5 generations. And to prevent that, all you have to do is birth your cell in the very middle, and that kills it off almost instantly. So if you want to see stuff like that, let me know, but if not, also let me know, and then I'll like work on other stuff, because I have a lot of other stuff coming too that's secret and you'll find out soon. Bye.